It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter, even Dave Brown, sitting in, learning the production side of the show here. We are glad to be joining you here from the Cogswell Motors Studios. Got a lot of sports to talk about today. We've got spring football. Razorbacks ended spring practice, and let's look on the bright side. At least we won't be disappointed this year. So we'll talk about the spring practice and the spring scrimmage that was. The highlight of that being a 50-yard touchdown carry from a man named Kanan Sandy. I don't know, you remember him, the Razorback Hall of Famer that the ESPN voted in. Special needs guy. It was a really cool thing. If you haven't seen it, go YouTube Kanan Sandy and what he did Saturday with the Razorbacks. It was an interesting day. Guys like Corliss Marshall, 6 carries for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the shining star. Didn't get a whole lot out of Brandon Allen, although he did throw 12 of 21 for 2 interceptions, 100 yards. That's just not.
And those weren't. That wasn't even the most egregious of the interceptions. His brother, Brandon threw some bad ones. I think one of his first interception. It was the second play of the scrimmage. Pretty tight coverage. We've been hearing about tight coverage all spring, and we said, look, we'll believe it when we see it, because that doesn't sound like any Arkansas D-backs we've ever heard of. But it looked like it. Now, the second one wasn't very good, but Austin Allen, his interceptions were just like, I can't even explain them. It's just like, we've heard of staring down the receiver. He just stared a hole into the receiver. And then it's just like, and the interceptions weren't like, oh, he really broke on the ball. The defender's like, oh, thanks. And they just ran another way. But the thing with Austin now, he's the guy who was really the most interesting to me, because he threw the worst interception, made the worst throws, but he also made the 2 best throws of the day.
Yeah,
That's
the way it goes.
It is. He made a couple of NFL-like throws. We talk about the deep out, the vertical stuff, to the boundary. He made those throws better than anybody else. Rafe Peavy's a guy physically looked good, but you can tell he's not ready yet.
We'll talk a little spring football later on. Alex Collins didn't play. Neither did Trey Flowers, right?
Trey Flowers didn't play.
He was out. So
yeah, Alex Collins did play. He was out there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I saw what I guess what I saw. I was just looking at the wrong side there. He did play.
His jersey was.
I'm sure glad that he was there for 4 carries. That's I guess they were just trying to keep him safe a little bit. But Jonathan Williams only got 8 carries. So it was Trey Flowers that didn't play. Alex Collins didn't play for the team that I originally looked at, the White. The Red just demolished the White in the scrimmage. What was it? 61-22 final score.
61. I think that.
Yeah, 61-22.
What was sad about that though is it was one versus the world. It's all the ones on the same team. The first half of the first quarter, the second team was clearly dominating on both sides of the ball. I mean, I'm not trying to bring bad news, but the red team got the ball, and they were getting stuffed, and they were getting stopped, and they were turning the ball over. And then the white team took over, the second teamers, and they started moving the ball a little bit. I'm sitting there saying, oh, Lord. Maybe this means Arkansas has a lot of depth, but I doubt it, because if you watch an Alabama scrimmage, even though those youngsters are talented, those ones still dominate. So a little bit troubling of a sign.
So we're going to have some things to talk about in the Hog Talk portion of the show, but we want to get started with a couple of other things. We got to talk about Donald Sterling and some of the ridiculous stuff that he had to say, but we also want to send thoughts and prayers to those affected by the tornadoes.
Yes. Yesterday
in the Mayflower and Valonia areas, Maddie was in that area last night. He was in Little Rock, and he got to see some of that damage, and it's unreal. My sister was driving through there today, and she just said the pictures you see and the stuff you see, the aerial footage still doesn't do it justice based on what. And I remember my family is from Oklahoma, and the more tornadoes that just ripped through there last year, my mom and dad nearly got caught up in that. Now, my mom lives near Moore, and my dad was on the interstate when this happened, so he was right there in the middle. It's scary stuff. But one of my high school friends, 2 of my high school friends, they got married, and they lost their house yesterday. They were in the bathroom in the tub, and that was all that was left standing, and lost their house completely. And it's just up to 16 confirmed deaths at this point, and we definitely need to send our thoughts and prayers to the folks who are affected by the tornadoes.
Just an absolutely devastating storm, Mark. There's no question about it. You're right. The photographs, I mean, even the high-def photos we saw before the show, I mean, just look terrific. But if you talk to people who have seen it on the ground there, they tell you it's even worse. I have family and friends in the area. Certainly, I was concerned, but I did get confirmation everybody's okay. But it's still a really tough deal, and the effort that it's going to take to come back. That's where we try to turn our attention. The emotional difficulty. You mentioned the loss of life that we now have to deal with. Those families have to deal with, and of course, the materials and property, which seems secondary, but nonetheless, you're still trying to rebuild lives. It's going to take a community, statewide, and even a federal effort, in my opinion, to get things back going.
Yeah, lots of folks around this area teaming up to help. I see that the Dardanelle Chamber of Commerce and the Dardanelle Middle School accepting things like bottled water, and we'll pass along any information we get as far as how the River Valley can help in that situation upcoming. Right now they don't need anything other than they were asking for volunteers to stay out of Valonia because they just have such a mess. They've set up a perimeter around the city. So we'll get more into that. You can come to rivervalleyleader.com and you can find out more about that. We're going to also speak at 11:15 with Nick Mason. We talked with him before. He's a radio host there in Northwest Arkansas, former Razorback basketball player. So we're going to talk with him about the situation du jour, the conversation of the day, which is Donald Sterling. It's unbelievable to me, and we were talking about this before the show, and it shouldn't probably be unbelievable to me that this type of person still exists in the universe today, but Donald Sterling, owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, Friday night, there was a released taped conversation with him and his girlfriend. He's still married. He's 80 years old. He's married. He's got a girlfriend on the side. I guess that's just the way they swing it there in L.A., and he is talking to this girlfriend about why she's hanging out with black people, why she's being seen in public. But the funny thing about this is, and it's not funny at all, Donald Sterling owns an NBA franchise, and most of his team is African American. And he's here talking about why in the world would you be seen with these black people, and he's just downgrading and just racist as you could possibly be. I can't even put a cohesive thought together about how stupid this is.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and you touched on it. It's not a surprise. As sad as that is, it's not a surprise because the biggest crime, or I should say, one of the main crimes Donald Sterling committed was he actually was dumb enough to get caught on tape. Because look, we would be naive to sit up here and think that he's the only owner in sports who feels this way, how these feels about black people. He just got caught, and it's a shame because I look at all this stuff, and I try to separate myself emotionally from a lot of these issues, and I look at everything almost like a chess game and pieces on a board. And by this tape coming out, that was a bad chess move for Donald Sterling. Okay, because now from a PR standpoint, you're gonna have to suffer the consequences. Again, I don't, emotionally, I'm fine. A lot of people have asked me what I thought about it and try to get my opinion on it, and I say, look, it was dumb. Look, we know there are people. I say this all the time. I go to the grocery store. I buy paper towels. I buy milk. I'm interacting with people all the time. I know that I'm dealing with people who some of them like me, some of them don't just because of the color of my skin. So for me, I think of, well, how am I going to let it affect me? How much emotion am I putting into it? It still exists. I know it's 2014, and we think, oh, how can this happen? It's 2014. You're going to be sitting here in 2025 saying, oh, it's 2025. How can this still be around? It is. It's a part of it. There's a good chance, I'm not speaking for anybody, I'm speaking total general terms here. There's a good chance that you're going to work or you're getting a paycheck from somebody who feels the way Donald Sterling does. It's just that owner's smart enough not to let it be voiced. And with Sterling, he's got a reputation. We know about the lawsuits. Elgin Baylor, Baron Davis has come out and said things. He's got a long history. We're going to get into the NAACP California chapter, who I think they've got some questions they need to answer. They were in position to hand him his second Lifetime Achievement Awards. What's the old soap opera, One Life to Live? You only live one time.
Yeah.
Yet he was getting his second Lifetime Achievement Award. Now that, of course, brings into question the fact that, or the possibility that he was paid off. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, why else would you give Donald Sterling a Lifetime Achievement Award?
Knowing what he has done. And
exactly.
We didn't even get into the discussion about the stuff that he has done before this. Now, we don't have time to really break it all down. But Donald Sterling had been accused of lots of bad stuff like this. He owned apartment buildings and that type of thing. He was a real estate guy, and he wouldn't rent to certain tenants. He wouldn't rent to African Americans or anybody but this certain group in this certain place. And he was very, very maligned for that. So the fact that he comes out and says this stuff, it's not a surprise that he would believe this stuff and he would say this stuff. Like you said, it is kind of justice that he gets caught. But the crazy stuff came after he said this, because obviously, if you had to guess, what percentage of the NBA would you say is African American? It's over 50, I would say.
Oh yeah, it's probably pushing 75-ish range, maybe more.
Obviously, when you say stupid crap like that, people in the NBA aren't going to be happy, and his players especially not going to be happy. So what happens? You've got people speaking out, owners. You've got former players, all-time greats, just coming out and disgusted with the stuff that Donald Sterling had to say, and his own team. And Chris Paul's the players' president, players' union president, and he's trying to decide whether or not they're going to play at all. They came out and lost Game 4 yesterday to even that series, but just crazy how big a distraction this is. His team comes out yesterday, and they have their Clippers shooting top on, and they all walk to half court, take it off, and throw it down, and they've got their shooting shirt on inside out. So they've got just the red No Clippers logo as their silent protest. For one, we'll talk a lot more about this after the break, but with Nick. But what are your thoughts on the protest, and what do you think about what has gone on since he's gotten caught saying these things?
Well, there's a lot of things going on with this situation. To speak to the protest, I like what Doc Rivers said after the game, because certainly I understand that there was a mental burden. There was a lot on those players, and certainly that is a viable excuse if you're looking at it from an outsider's perspective. If you're a fan or a media member, you may say, well, the Clippers had a heavy heart, or they had a lot on their mind. I get that, but I like what Doc Rivers said, because from Doc's perspective, he's saying, you know what? I didn't love the protest, but I didn't get in the way of it. And that's, to me, that's what makes Doc one of the best coaches in the league, because the coach in the NBA, you have to have a mix of discipline. You have to be a disciplinarian, but you have to do it in a way knowing you're coaching grown men. You can't just cuss them out like a college coach, just cuss a kid out and tell them to get on their way. You got to have that tough yet cool mentality. And Doc Rivers put that on display. And as a coach, I like what he said. He said, you know what, that stuff was hanging over us, but it's my job to get us ready. I didn't do it. Now, we on the outside may say, oh, no, Doc, don't put that on yourself. But I understand where he's coming from. I understand him putting that burden on himself, even though it may not be fair to him. He understands that.
All right, let's hit a break real quickly, because we got Nick Mason calling in here in just a moment, and I want to dig a lot deeper into this Donald Sterling situation, what's going to happen, what needs to happen. I mean, I'll just go ahead and say he does not need to own an NBA franchise anymore. He doesn't need to ever step foot in an NBA arena again. And a matter of fact, there are things that I would say that are much meaner than that.
Can he come to the Freeman house?
I'll keep to myself. No, he's not welcome. So there's a lot more on this topic right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KARK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out rivervalleyleader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz here on a Monday morning. Mark Freeman joining me on my right. Matty Lassiter, as always, doing a great job with the controls. Dave Brown in the house. Dave, wave, even though nobody can see you, wave. Dave is waving in case you didn't know it. Mark, before we went to break, we were talking about the Donald Sterling situation. We know over the weekend it really took not only the basketball world by storm, but it took the sports world by storm. We talked before the break about just the overall sentiment of it, and the dynamics of it, and how things are going to play out. We're joined by our good friend Nick Mason. We're going to bring him in here in just a minute to talk more about this as a trio. But a lot of the reaction, because we always want to see what the stars are saying. Yeah. And you look at the Magic Johnsons, the Michael Jordans, and the LeBron Jameses of the world. And, Magic Johnson, he was the first person I saw come out on Twitter. He essentially said, Cookie, his wife, we'll never go to a Clippers game again as long as Donald Sterling is the owner. He, of course, responding to the TMZ initial report. LeBron, during his game 3 against the Bobcats, he was asked about it. He essentially alluded to the fact that a lot of people had come together and to make the NBA what it is, one of the greatest sports in the world, and he has no place in it. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest, if not the greatest player of all time, expressing how outraged he is, and he's confident in Adam Silver and what Adam Silver will do. So, Mark, it really looks like all eyes now are on the league, on Adam Silver, what can and what cannot be done as far as addressing this situation.
Man, it's a multi-layered situation. We were talking about in the break, and I was talking to Weldon. I was just like, I don't know really where to go with this. I don't want to gloss over too much. I am interested in getting Nick Mason's opinion. Nick coming in right now on the line. We appreciate your time today, Nick. Nick is a radio host there in Northwest Arkansas, former Razorback basketball player, and we definitely appreciate getting his opinion on this. Nick, what's going on, man?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, not a problem at all. Well, we just wanted to kind of touch base with you and see what your thought. You and I know we talked on Twitter yesterday a little bit. Normally we disagree. I like that though, because we got we got different opinions. I think we sort of I don't want to put words in your mouth. We probably agree quite a bit about this Donald Sterling subject, but I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, well, first I'm kind of taken back a little bit by everybody's acting so shocked by his comments and by his actions and how he feels towards African Americans. And I mean, it's been well documented on numerous occasions that he has racist tendencies. I don't like to just lump everybody who says bad words about another race into the racist category, but I mean it's been well documented that this is how he feels. Now, as far as what the NBA should do, I think a lot of people are being confused on who runs the NBA. The owners are the people that run the NBA. So it doesn't matter what LeBron James comes out and says. It doesn't matter what Magic Johnson comes out and says. It doesn't matter what Chris Paul, what the Clippers do. It doesn't matter. I read this morning that State Farm was pulling their funding and their sponsorship from the Clippers organization. It doesn't matter about all that. What matters is, will the other 29 owners come together and will they vote Donald Sterling out of this, out of their private club? Because right now, Adam Silver, he can't really do anything because he is an employee of the NBA owners. So it's going to be up to the NBA owners to all step up and decide what they want to do going forward. And right now, I think people are a little confused with who has the power in the NBA, and it is the owners.
I definitely want to get to that because that's one of the topics that we talked about a little bit before the break. The maximum penalty, from what I'm reading and heard this morning, is $1 million fine, which, he's a billionaire, so it's not going to be that big a deal to him, but that's still $1 million fine. And was it a year suspension? Is that right, Will?
Yeah, it's suspension.
They wouldn't allow him to step. Now, he missed Game 4 because two reasons. One, the NBA asked him and he agreed not to show up, and two, he was probably afraid for his life, which he probably should be. But Donald Sterling, chances are he's not going to be able to step foot in an arena again as an owner. But like you just mentioned, Nick, I'm not sure what can be done aside from everybody in the owner's pool, so to speak. Those guys who are his peers to come together and say, all right, Donald, you're giving us a bad name. We don't want you to own this franchise anymore. Sell. After that, I don't really know, Weldon, if there's anything they can do.
Well, here's the thing, and Nick, you're absolutely right as far as the dynamic between the owners and the commissioner and who works for who. And a lot of people will think, well, okay, it's easier. Get all the owners on the same accord, but there's a lot more interest. They want to look at it from a PR standpoint, but they're also going to look at the financial ramifications and all the other things too, so it may make such a vote difficult. But I agree with what Stephen A. Smith said this morning. Joe Public, the average fan, they're the ones who have a lot of power because it's all dictated by the dollar. And if the dollar suggests that Donald Sterling is making the Clippers even more profitable year after year, game after game, obviously they're more competitive now in the last couple of years. If you're continuing to patronize his product and make the league more money as far as the revenue and the revenue sharing, it's going to make his case a lot stronger. I've kind of looked at it from this position. It's a little bit different. If Donald Sterling really wants to dig his heels in, let's face it, he's got some things to stand on. Obviously, the authenticity of the audio is in question. Obviously, his standing in the league and saying, you know what, hey, I'm helping contribute. I'm making money. We're doing these things. Why are you really getting me out? Did I make a public statement? Yes, I have a tape that got out, if it's even proven to be him in the first place. I think Donald Sterling, worst case scenario, can still make it kind of nasty. You talk about appeals, anything that comes down on him, trying to force him to sell, he can appeal, drag things through the courts. I think this thing could get nasty when the NBA does try to levy a heavy punishment. Not talking about the $1 million in the fine. Silver can do that because that's in the bylaws. But, Nick, I'm just talking about long-term, the impact of this.
Yeah, and I think I agree with everything that you just said. I think it depends on who tries to punish Sterling. Now, if Silver comes out and he's only spoken to a couple of the owners, and this is from the NBA, and this is from the Players Association, this is from Silver, then I do think that Sterling will try to drag it out in court and try to fight this. But now, if all the owners come together and all those guys say, hey, we want you out, we don't want you part of our private club anymore, then I think that he'll take his payoff, because if they do vote him out, they still have to give him market value for what the Clippers are worth right now, and I've read everywhere from $600 million to $800 million. So he's still going to get a nice lump sum, a nice payout. But I think in which he handles it, it's going to depend on who punishes him.
Well, one question that I was very interested to ask you, and Weldon and I talked about it before the break, it deals with the way people reacted to these, and I know you looked at it from a more level-headed standpoint than even I did. I went crazy on it. I was just, this dude is an idiot and he deserves to be, hung up. But I was pretty upset about the way he went about this. But the Clippers and what they did, what did you think about the things that were said and the things that the Clippers did, and how this situation was handled from the Clippers and the NBA standpoint?
I thought that was about as much as they can do. I know LeBron came out and he said, hey, if it was me, I'd have to think about sitting out, which is perfectly fine. But what LeBron has to look at, and what a lot of people have to look at, is this. A lot of individuals think that all NBA players are all making $20 million, all have a lot of commercials, all have $50 million in the bank, and that's just not the case. There are some NBA players that are living paycheck to paycheck, just like the average person. And what LeBron also has to think about is, he said that he would sit out, which would be perfectly fine because he has two championships already, four MVPs. He's probably going to get more MVPs. He's probably going to get more championships. So he could actually sit out and nothing happened to him. Whereas Chris Paul, I've been told by a lot of people that if Chris Paul cannot get it done in the next couple of years, that's really going to hurt his legacy moving forward. And so, you have to think about different things like that. You have to think about guys being paid. And if you sit out in the playoffs, so were they just going to sit out one game and then they're going to come back and play in Game 5? Or how is that really going to work? Because if you're not prepared to sit out for the remaining of the playoffs, then it almost just puts you in a bind. You give away a free game, and then you come back, and now you're in the hole, and you're playing again. So I thought that the Clippers did as much as they could. I thought that I thought that it was a good gesture, and I think that they've made their point. I've heard that they're going to do even more. I'm not sure what else they can actually do, but I do think that they've made their point. They got everybody's attention.
Well, one thing that I wanted to look at is the sucky part about this. Okay, Donald Sterling is an idiot, and the stuff that he said and did just ridiculous. But everything that can be done by anybody outside of just punishment handed down to Donald Sterling himself will hurt the team and the fans. If they sit out, the fans who came to the game get to watch the scrubs play or nobody play. If the fans don't show up, the players don't have an atmosphere to play in. They feel like it's already just a huge distraction. So everything that can be done, it's not going to affect Donald Sterling. It's going to affect the players, the organization itself, and they're kind of stuck in a terrible spot for a team that I think is better than the Golden State Warriors.
Yes.
Now they've got this huge albatross hanging around their neck, and I don't know how they're going to respond.
And Mark and Nick, we've all talked about how fans need to understand when things come down, because I'm a little bit concerned. Adam Silver, I know he wants some type of resolution before the game tips off tomorrow. I think it's going to be difficult to come down with anything satisfactory universally before tomorrow. So I'm interested to see what comes down from him and his office, and then the reaction from the public. Because what I've heard is if something satisfactory doesn't come down, you may have protests / riots going on in L.A., and obviously that's something we don't want. But you're right. Sitting out doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't hurt Donald Sterling, I should say. It does hurt the fans. It hurts the players. The Clippers, and I think they understand this, the Clippers are a group of players who have decided ever since training camp, we're going to come together, we're going to do this. I don't necessarily think they're saying, well, we're playing for Donald Sterling, we're playing for the Clippers. You got Chris Paul. Nick mentioned it. Chris Paul's been in the league, about 10 years now. He hadn't won a ring. He's considered to be one of the greatest point guards we've seen. It's time for him to get it done no matter who's the owner. Obviously, Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, it's time for them to start winning and doing things in the playoffs. And so I don't think they want to jeopardize that. They may be frustrated in the moment, but they're there to win a championship no matter who the owner is. It's about them. I think, look, the only way to really hurt, and I know we talked about State Farm pulling some sponsorships, and that alone can't do it, but I think collectively the corporate partners, because yes, there's ticket sales and there's revenue sharing around the league, but those corporate partners are a huge part of the financial pie. And I think if all of them pulled out, or at least a significant amount of them pulled out away from the Clippers, then you might start to talk about something that could hurt Sterling and hurt them financially. Because, look, the tickets have been sold. I hear don't show up at the game. Those tickets have been sold out. The second party or third party may not be making money, but as far as the initial sales, Nick, that's already been done. He's already pocketed that money.
Right, and I'm so glad that you brought that point up, because I've seen so many people talk about ticket sales, this and that, and for anybody, even if you've thrown like a local tournament, everybody knows that you don't make money off of tickets, or at least you do make money, but that's not what pays the bills. That's not what keeps the lights on. Really, a lot of people don't understand. Whenever you sign those multi-year $1 million contracts with State Farm or Wendy's, McDonald's, et cetera, that's what makes you the money, and those deals have already been signed or whatever, and that's what's making the Clippers all this money. I'd be real interested to see, though, what other corporate partners pull out, because right now, if the only reason that the State Farm people pulled out is because the marketing group that owns State Farm, or the marketing group that works for State Farm, the CEO of that marketing group is actually an African American. So I'd be willing to say right now, as far as, the CEOs of these big companies, less than 5% of those are African Americans, and I think the only reason that guy actually pulled out was because he's an African American. Now, if I'm a white American and he makes these comments, yes, I'm going to say, man, shame on you. I can't believe you made these comments. But if you're making me millions and millions of dollars each and every year, that's a bad business move on my part to actually pull out. And so I think a lot of people have to look at it like that. A lot of people have to look at it as if, there's going to be people that are making these decisions, and all CEOs are not the most ethical people in the world. I think that I can say that without necessarily going out on a limb. So I'd be real curious to see how they handle this. And right now, I think the only thing that can hurt Sterling as far as get him or remove him from the NBA, and I brought this up in the opening whenever we opened up, is if the owners come together. Because outside of that, y'all said he has $1 billion. So even if everybody does pull, all their money away from him, he's 81 or 82 right now. He has $1 billion. So I'm pretty sure he could fund the team by himself for $500 million over the next 10 years, as long as he's alive. And you've seen, a lot of people that are rich try to prove their point, and they'll lose money just trying to prove a point. So unless the owners come together and vote him out or want him gone, I don't know if we as fans, I don't know if we as, the everyday working Americans have enough pull to remove him and remove his ownership.
All right, I've got one more question that I want to ask both of you guys. You talk about the money, and you talk about his pride as a business owner and a guy who's made billions. Can the players do anything aside from sitting out? Can they get together? Chris Paul's the president of the Players Union. Can they get together and form some sort of agreement that, and I don't even know if this is possible, that we will not play for we will not sign a contract as a free agent with the Los Angeles Clippers as long as Donald Sterling's owner. And if you want any of these superstars who will sign this and agree, you just better get rid of them, because these folks are not going to play for him. You're going to end up with the 06 Lakers or whatever it was, Smush Parker and some scrubs. Yeah, this year's with some crappy dudes out there, because we won't play for Donald Sterling. Is there anything that is it even practical?
Well, I'll just say this, Nick. Possibly. I think it'd be difficult. A lot of these contracts still have some life to them. Chris Paul's contract has some life, Blake Griffin. But if you talk about new people, I do think you're going to have a heightened sense of awareness from here moving forward. Let's say Sterling stays in place. I certainly think it will be a less desirable place to come and play, and the product will suffer from that standpoint. But I still think it all comes back down to the ability to get Sterling out and how easy it can and can't be. The players can do so much, but in the end, Nick, I still think it comes down to what the league can do, what the owners can do as far as getting him out, even though the players may put up a great effort.
And I can't agree with you anymore. The problem with what you brought up, Mark, is in all companies, the workers always have the power. But the reason why the owners, the reason why the managers are never scared of an uprising is just because it sounds good, all of us talking about, okay, let's get together, let's boycott, let's say that we're not going to sign a free agent contract, et cetera, et cetera. But we all know that there are guys out there, and I'm just using this guy for an example. So if the Clippers offer J.R. Smith $20 million, you don't think that he's going to drop his whole, I'm trying to boycott this and go sign that $20 million deal, and which I don't blame him, because, after everything that Sterling said, if he offered me $10 million to come play, hey, I'm going to forget everything he said in a heartbeat, and I'm going to go play. So there are too many individuals in the NBA. Now, I think that Chris Paul can step up and do it, Carmelo, LeBron, Kevin Durant, all these guys who have made their money, but there are too many guys, those next-tier guys, those borderline all-stars that would drop that, that moral code in a second and go play for him if he's going to offer them $20 million. And so that's the reason why it won't work if guys say that. And also, too, the NBA is still going to push the Clippers because, once again, it's bad business to not push one of your teams. And the NBA doesn't want another, Milwaukee Bucks, a team that nobody cares about and that nobody wants to watch. The NBA doesn't want, another case in that. So, I'll say this for the last time, and I'm going to say this on my show over and over and over again today, unless they all come together, and I'm not even talking about if half of them come together, I'm talking about if more than half, close to all of them, if they don't come together and say, okay, we want this guy out of our game and removed, he can stay as long as he wants to stay.
All right, Nick, we appreciate your time today. Where can people find your show and get a hold of your radio station there?
We actually have a free app for everybody that has a smartphone, and it's 2014, so I hope everybody has a smartphone. You can go to your app store and you can download the app. It is Hog Sports Radio, one word, and you can listen to us Monday to Friday from 4 to 6.
Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. All right. Well, I'm going to be paying particular attention this evening to Nick's show and what he has to say. We really appreciate the fresh insight and all the good stuff from you today, Nick. Thank you for taking the time. We'll appreciate it, and we'll visit with you again soon.
Always fun talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. That's Nick Mason. Going to be doing a big-time show today. It's he's going to have a whole lot more to say. You could tell he was trying to save some of his ammo.
Yeah, save some of his ammo. I will say this, though, real quick, though, because it's been brought up, boycotts and how effective can they be. Obviously, people want to reference what happened in the 1960s, Montgomery bus boycotts and things of that nature. But I think the difference is sports owners, especially today, they didn't get rich because they own the team. They own the team because they're rich, and so it's a lot more difficult to affect their pocketbook per se, just from this angle of the team. Now, these people are rich for a reason. They're very frugal, they're very smart with money. They don't like losing a dime, but you can cripple somebody who their primary source of income or the reason they're rich is because of that certain business, like owning a bus company. But you can't boycott. Jerry Jones didn't get rich by owning the Dallas Cowboys. He's got those Cowboys because he was a very rich man. That's how these owners work. So I think a boycott or some type of protest in that form would be a little less effective because of that.
Yeah, it's going to have to be pressure from within, like Nick said.
Yeah.
And, man, he just needs to go. He needs to go. There's nothing else that can be said. All right, we got to hit a break. We got a little bit more NBA. After this break, we're going to look at the series. No series are over. There's going to be one over tonight. Miami's going to take out Charlotte in 4 games tonight, 6 o'clock tip. But we've got Atlanta, Indiana tonight, 2-2 apiece there in that one. Atlanta nearly took a 3-1 lead, and Indiana came back to win that one. And then the Dallas Mavericks took a 2-1 lead on a Vince Carter miracle 3 at the buzzer against San Antonio. They've got game 4 tonight. We'll talk about those 3 games and the other games that took place over the weekend.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
Updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
We've got some happy news, some sad news, and some NBA playoffs. Let's start with the sad news. Dr. Jack Ramsey, of course, he lived a long and happy, illustrious life. He made the Hall of Fame in 3 different ways: as a coach, as a broadcaster, and as something else. I just saw it earlier. Dr. Jack Ramsey died at the age of 89. As he died in his sleep. That's the way to go if you're going to go.
I was going to say that's.
But yeah, 89 years old. He made the Hall of Fame as a broadcaster. If you have paid attention to basketball in the last 40 years, you've heard of Dr. Jack, and he was a monumental figure, and he passed away overnight.
Yeah, I mean, he did live a long life, 89 years. You know, he's one of those guys that, he was an all everything kind of sports figure. You know, some guys are coaches, some guys are just broadcasters, some guys are just players, but not many people just can impact the game overall. You know, I look at a Dickie V, it's just, you know, somebody who just impacts the game with a personality and as an analyst, just an overall feel on the game. You would hear him give his expert analysis on the radio. We know he used to coach in college and in the pros. Just an overall basketball contributor. And I like those people who just give to the game, no matter what the capacity is. They just give themselves to the game. He did that. Dr. Jack will obviously be missed.
Definitely. You go to Google and just type in Dr. Jack Ramsey, and you can just read about this man's life and legacy and what people are saying about him today. Just so much good stuff coming out about Dr. Jack Ramsey. So that's the sad news. The funny news and kind of good as far as NBA goes, I'm a big LeBron James fan. I don't know if you saw this or not, but you may have to go to YouTube and then type in LeBron James stares down Michael Jordan and see what you get. Game 3, LeBron gets a steal, and he's going down to dunk one. He is just by himself, and it seems like, and I watched it in regular speed, but I really watched it more in like a half speed, slow motion type thing. For 3 seconds, he is staring rim here at Michael Jordan, sitting in the first row, dribbling down, just staring at him. Jumps up, still staring at him. Barely looks at the rim and dunks it, still staring at him. One of the most hilarious things I've ever seen LeBron James do.
You know, what kind of struck me about this is you go back and you look at other sort of changing of the guard situation. Obviously, you know, LeBron, you could say Kobe was kind of in between them as far as passing the torch. But usually when a current player is playing in the presence of a former great, there's just this aura of reverence and just sort of a humility and a respect. But the difference is, I'm not saying it's LeBron's fault. I'm saying is Michael has set the tone to where it's hard to look at him like that. Because you see, just think about any of the all-time greats, like a Bill Russell, all the players after him, they show respect, and they're not trying to stare down Mr. Bill Russell. They're trying to impress him to give up to his level. But with some of Michael's comments and kind of taking little backhand jabs at LeBron James, all these things, you didn't see other predecessors do that, like a Bill Russell. He didn't say, well, come on, this Shaq guy, Shaq ain't got nothing on me, or this guy, that guy's Dwight Howard, he's terrible. He didn't say those things, but Michael is somebody who obviously believes he's the greatest of all time, does not believe anybody is approaching him.
Except for Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, except Kobe Bryant, though, because
Which pisses me off.
And he knows, and LeBron knows. And
that's why I think that he did it.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm all right with him doing it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And look, I love Michael Jordan. I love his whole bitter old man attitude, because it just fits all into place. I love it. And I like how LeBron is just trying to stare him down. You would normally, I guess my point to this, Mark, is normally you see these relationships as being sort of fatherly, sonly type, but this is kind of like an antagonistic relationship between LeBron and the greatest.
It's not a passing of the torch. It's a I'm going to take that torch from you type thing from LeBron. Not saying that he has, can, or will, but Michael Jordan, like he said, has been such a grouchy jerk, and that's what got him to where he was.
Yeah.
I mean, he was great because he couldn't stand losing. He couldn't even stand his own teammates. Ask Steve Kerr how that punch felt. But at the same time, Michael Jordan, you watch his Hall of Fame induction, and I lost all respect for the man, Michael Jordan. I don't want my kid to be anything like Michael Jordan off the court. If he's ever going to have a chance to do that.
Hey, you never know.
Short and white, he's pretty much hosed already. But Michael Jordan has been one of those guys who, I don't know, he is antagonistic. He's always saying stuff. He knows that LeBron James is better than Kobe Bryant right now. He knows. And he's still one of those, Kobe's the only, because he's safe. He knows Kobe Bryant's not going to surpass him, and he knows that Kobe has modeled everything he's done after Michael Jordan. Watch the way he shoots the fadeaway. Watch the way he makes the mannerisms and the way he does the things that he does on the court. It's Michael Jordan made over. That's why I don't like Kobe. But LeBron James, what I love about him is that Michael has been so adamant about the fact that Kobe's the only one close, Jordan's not. And LeBron won't kiss the ring. He won't bow down and say, "Oh, Michael, he'll stare him down." Basically, a middle finger to Michael Jordan as he's dunking the basketball on his team, saying, "We're going up 3-0. I'm about to send your boys home with a sweep, and there ain't nothing you can do about it." And I'm also, he said it more than once, and it's one of those things, the evolution of LeBron that I've loved watching in his career. He's trying not only to be great, he's trying to be the greatest, which means he's got to knock that guy off. I love what I saw.
I do too, and the other side of this too, and I was saying it before the show, is what Michael's saying. We've seen the screenshots of the look on Michael's face, and just imagine all the words not made for television going through Michael Jordan's mind, like, somebody go get my sneakers. I'm tired of this dude. We finna sell this right now. Now, we know Michael would be in trouble at age 51 against a 29-year-old LeBron, but in his mind, I'm thinking I'm sick of this. Once they're gonna win in Game 4, and then after Game 4, I'm stepping on this court. Let me wear the Jordan 12s. Give me the 12s. I don't want to wear my 9s. Give me my Jordan 12s. We finna sell this because I'm tired of this dude. That's what's going on in Michael's mind. He
burns him up.
It burns him up, and as you said, that's what made him great, but he just can't put it away.
Miami going to close out Charlotte tonight in 4 games. I'm calling it. It's kind of a shame. Miami was going to win this series in 4 to 5 games. It was just there was no getting around it. But Al Jefferson being out, I say out. He's out there, but he's hurt with plantar fasciitis, and apparently he's torn or ripped, in his words, his plantar fasciitis, or his plantar fascia. So he'll be limited. Miami really not going to be challenged that much tonight. But this, aside from that series, has been one of, if not the best, NBA playoff seasons so far. You've got 2 games apiece for Atlanta, Indiana, 2 games apiece for Brooklyn and Toronto, 2 games apiece for Memphis and Oklahoma City, 3 of those going to overtime, 2 games apiece for Golden State and Los Angeles, the Clippers, and then 3-1 Portland over Houston, but 3 of those games have gone to overtime.
Yes.
So you've got great series all the way across the board, and I didn't even mention the 2-1 series lead for Dallas the second win for Dallas in Game 3 coming on a buzzer beater.
Yeah, I mean, these have been great playoffs because anytime you have the favorites or at least the higher seeded teams in a vulnerable position, it makes for good playoffs. You look at the top 2 seeds in each conference, 3 of them are a little bit shaky right now. Miami's the only one on solid ground. You look at Dallas and San Antonio. I didn't write Dallas off. I mean, I knew the Spurs were the favorite, the better team, all this good stuff. But Dallas, they're the kind of team that they may not win the championship this year, but they're just made up of the right stuff. Tough veteran coach, veterans like Vince Carter and Dirk who've just been through it. Then you mix in some little quickness with Devin Harris, some shooting of Calderon, and they just Dallenberg give inside presence. They're not a collection of greatness, but they got the right mix of being able to score and tough. That's going to be a challenge for San Antonio. That series will go longer than what people thought it may. You look at Brooklyn and Toronto. Toronto is a problem. I didn't feel for television entertainment purposes, I wanted to see Brooklyn play Miami, but I said I don't know if they'll get there because Toronto is a problem. Now, if Toronto does beat the Brooklyn Nets, it's not even going to be fun TV watching them against Miami. It's just Toronto. I like Toronto, but that's just not good for them. They can win that series. I think people wrote them off. You look at Memphis. People wrote them off as well. But I want to say this, Mark. You look at teams down 3-1, Houston and Chicago. And Kenny Smith broke this down. By the way, Kenny Smith's my favorite basketball analyst. I think he's great. He broke this down in a way I agree with. When you're down 3-1, psychologically, it's not that bad, especially if you're the favorite, because you're going back home for the next game, Game 5. You think if we can't get one on our home floor, we can't get anything. You make it 3-2. Now all of a sudden that Game 6, ultimate pressure's on that team hosting Game 6. Because you got to win that at home, otherwise you're in a toss-up Game 7. I'm not calling for either series to get flipped and the team down 3-1 to win either series, but it'll be interesting to see. I think Washington can close because they're consistently a better team than Chicago. But I look at Houston. I expect Portland to get one of these next 3, but I'm still not seeing the separation. Houston's still a good team that can score. Portland's a good team that can score. To me, it's just Portland's won the crapshoot more than Houston has won it. I think that'll be a fun finish to that series.
Yeah, I do think Portland will find a way because when it comes down to it, Houston's soft. There's no getting around it. They just find a way to give up a basket. Now, they may hit enough to beat you, but Portland's got some guys who, I love watching Damian Lillard. And I want to talk a little bit later on, we don't have time today, about top 5 favorite players to watch in the NBA. Damian Lillard, I think, has jumped into my top 5. Steph Curry, LeBron, Durant, those guys. That's 4 right there. Chris Paul maybe is a number 5, although I don't like how much Chris Paul cries about everything. But, these guys are, I love Manu Ginobili, Dirk Nowitzki. Got to have Lance Stevenson.
Dirk. You really don't like Dirk?
No, I hate all those guys. They're terrible. I hate Blake Griffin. I don't know why, but I don't like Blake Griffin. I've actually begun to appreciate guys like Dwight Howard a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
Although he does the same thing. He gets Shaq treatment pretty bad. I was watching last night, and he was getting murdered every time he got the ball. He still had 20. Dwight Howard, we talk about how big a pansy he is and how he's not a leader, and he has 25, 15, and 4.
But you know what, though?
Every night.
I want to say something about this because we now have a collection of players in this league, and they're mostly big men. Dwight's getting on the list now to where – I'm sorry, but I just can't take their stats seriously. Al Jefferson's one. This 38 and 25. It's just like, okay, but there's not much else going on. DeMarcus Cousins does it too. He'll put up 30 and 20. I'm sorry, but everybody's boy, Kevin Love, he's another one. And when I see Dwight, it's like, how much are you really impacting the game with these big numbers? I mean, like, you should be an all-star and all that stuff, but I'm still not on the White train, just like those other 3. They're good players. They put up good stats, but are you a transcendent player? I question it. That's just me.
I agree. There's something to be said about that. And that's probably why people give Dwight Howard so much grief because he puts up the big numbers, but he's never.
Would you take him over Aldridge? That's the debate's coming up. Like, is he still ahead of Aldridge on your list? I know Aldridge's been balling lately.
I would probably. Man, that's tough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now I'd have to take Aldridge, but overall. Man, Dwight Howard's he's very good. I do think he's not a number 1, and LaMarcus Aldridge can be a number 1.
That's a good point.
That's probably where I'd go with LaMarcus Aldridge.
Good point.
Now, anyway, lots of conversation to come about the NBA as we got those 3 games tonight. We'll see if Miami can actually live up to my boast and close out the Charlotte Bobcats and see what happens with those 2 games. But we need to move on real quickly to Razorback Sports, our Hog Talk segment. The Razorback baseball team moved up to number 24 in the country and immediately wet the bed. Lost to Auburn. Haven't beaten Auburn since 2009 in a series. Auburn's not that good, but they lost 2 out of 3 at home.
Yeah, I mean, somehow they just know how to get Arkansas's number, even though they've had a variety of coaches. The SEC is a tough conference, maybe even a tougher baseball conference than it is a football conference. Yet and still, and Auburn they haven't been good relative to everybody else consistently. Yeah, they beat Arkansas. A little bit disappointed in the last game of the series. Chris Oliver, who's been a really solid number 2 guy, even though he pitches the last game, he's still number 2 guy in terms of their top pitchers. And he struggled. He kind of gave up some runs early. He got ran. That was a little bit disappointing. But Arkansas is still a team that their pitching can keep them in games. I think the last game was more of an aberration. Still think the Hogs have a chance to scratch out a regional bid.
They're going to have to pick up the bats, man. They're so hot and cold. It's I don't know. Yeah. Either way, I know that Saturday was a great day for baseball. Arkansas won the first game, lost the second game to lose the series, but they played a doubleheader because of inclement weather that came in, and boy did it ever on Sunday. But the flip side of that, and it's one of my favorite days that I've been a part of the last couple of years, didn't get to go this year, but they play the baseball game and the spring game, football game, on the same day, and you can go straight from the baseball game to the spring game, and it's a pretty cool event. And actually this year you could go baseball game, spring game, back to another baseball game if you wanted to. But the spring football game took place on Saturday, and we alluded to it earlier. It was a sloppy affair, 61-22. The ones beat the world, so to speak. And we didn't see a whole lot of great news, but you can see one of 2 things in spring football, and I don't think either one of them matter all that much. You can see a team, Bobby Petrino, in his first year, he had Casey Dick throw for 400 yards in the spring game. Well, was Casey Dick that good? No, Arkansas was not very good. Or you can see a team, and Brett Bielema alluded to this, he sort of watered down the playbook. He kind of kept things vanilla, and the quarterbacks and the offense sort of struggled. I'm not real happy with the fact that we still have receivers dropping passes all over the place. You still have quarterback play that's just subpar.
Right.
I'm not really excited right now with what I saw from spring practice.
It was a little bit tough to watch. And look, I understand that the playbook is being watered down. That's what you do in a scrimmage. But yet and still, the quarterback play, just some of the decision makings. I don't care if you're running, the most elementary play in your offense. There's still a certain read. There's a certain progression. Ball needs to go to a certain place dictated by the defense, and when you don't deliver, it's an issue. Brandon Allen, threw an interception early. I thought it was good defense, but still interception. Austin Allen, as I said before, had some horrific throws. Rafe Peeva was just a little bit erratic. You can see the talent there. He's just somewhat erratic. He's a freshman, and so
he should have been going to prom.
He should have been going to prom. Instead, he's getting his foot in on campus. I do think Austin will take the number 2 job, though. I think that was up for debate. I think Austin gets the number 2 job. But the passing game is really a question because just because you're a physical run team, just because you're a pro-style team, doesn't mean that you don't throw the ball at all, or at least you have to be horrific at it. You do have to have a degree of proficiency. Even Coach Bielema at his time at Wisconsin had a proficient passing game in terms of just a little over 200 yards a game with a devastating running attack. That's plenty. But last year Arkansas threw for about 147 a game. That's not going to get it, and they didn't look like they're going to be much better. They've got to find a way to generate more explosive plays, and you can do it with this running game. It can help you get explosive plays. They have a lot of depth at receiver, therefore you would think there would be great competition, therefore great play. We still haven't seen it mark. The drops were still evident.
Well, you're talking about explosive plays, and as we talked through spring, we talked about Corliss Marshall.
Right.
Talked about how he could be the guy. Is he the Felix Jones type guy? And, our conversation that we had a couple weeks ago, our CrossFit Russellville poll question, would which would be more likely? Corliss Marshall leads the team in rushing, or the defense finishes in the top 5 or top half of the SEC. It's looking a lot less crazy that Corliss Marshall's the best running back on the team.
Oh, yeah, I have to say. I think the Felix comparisons are fine, although
Dennis Johnson.
Yeah, Dennis Johnson, I'm seeing that a little bit more. I mean, I think Felix may be a little bit more lightning quick home run-ish, although Corliss can hit the home run. But Corliss has a chance to be more of an all-around guy. He's got some strength. He's got some power. Alex Collins is the one who needs to step it up a little bit because, Jonathan Williams looked good. Corliss Marshall looked good. So now you start to look at the young freshman Alex Collins. The defense, I have to admit, so far it's been what people have said it's been in terms of the coverage is night and day. I mean, they're physical, they're aggressive, they're contesting balls. There were some bad throws, but there was some great play in the secondary. The defensive line played well. I just worry about their depth, and that's when you look at a Bijan Jackson coming in this fall.
Bijan Jackson, who can bench press my house. Yeah. My wife made a joke yesterday. I don't know what happened, where it came from, but she said something about it was basically about she's 9 months pregnant. She's due any moment.
Right.
And she was talking about how she was out doing stuff on Saturday, and her mom was like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this stuff?" And she said, "Well, I'm not trying to bench press a Buick over here." And I just cracked me up because Bijan Jackson is a guy who probably could bench press a stinking Buick. So he's going to have to help on the defensive line there at defensive tackle. They're going to have to shift some stuff around. We didn't even mention the other day that Horace Arcadi is no longer with the Razorback football team. Lots of changing and people buying in or not and getting to go bye-bye. So spring practice is sort of a barometer. It's not necessarily how the team's going to be. You're going to see in fall practice some of these freshmen that come in and JUCO guys who come in the spring or in the fall and compete for starting jobs, add depth, and make this team look a little different. But like we talked on the opening of the show, Weldon, it just wasn't all like a rah-rah type spring for Arkansas.
No, and we know with Coach Bielema, spring football is going to be more of an honest appraisal than a Bobby Petrino spring game. So I think we do understand that. And the quarterback play left a lot to be desired, but I do have to say this. You look at some things and how some things fell out. The defense is better. I have to now. If I didn't have confidence in the defense and it was still a sloppy offensive game, I'd be concerned. But I think the defense will be much improved. I can't guarantee that top half, but I think they'll be a lot better under Coach Rob Smith.
All right, we got to get out of here. We need to remind you to go buy your Brightest Stars Banquets tickets. Brightest Stars Banquet tickets. RiverValleyLeader.com. We're going to have some hard copies available around town, around the Tri-County area, so that you can go buy your ticket if you can't buy it online. You can get it on PayPal or however you want to. And then also we need to make mention of some other local sports stuff. The Arkansas Tech men's baseball team win 22 games in a row to close out the season.
Yeah.
They're officially and out ahead by a couple games as conference champions.
Now
they're in the GAC.
Did I see some standings for the All Sports? I thought I saw that on Twitter. I thought somebody had some All Sports standings in Arkansas Tech.
Number one, it's overtake Harding, huh?
They said unofficial, so we'll have to check.
Yeah, it'd have to be after the conference tournament before they decide that.
Yeah, but right
now. If Arkansas Tech can go ahead and win the baseball conference tournament and then hang tough in softball and all that, they win that Arkansas Tech trophy for the third year in a row. Rename that sucker. Congratulations to the baseball team on a great regular season. Also, Pottsville softball girls won the conference championship three-way tie. They're actually going to be the third seed because of tiebreaker, but they did tie for the conference championship record-wise. And then local baseball, Hector wins 2 games against Quitman, 13-0 and 15-2. That's a good squad over there. Coach Harrelson got himself a good team over there in Hector. And then also the Russellville baseball Cyclones. I think the softball Cyclones won too, but I know the baseball team won 13-2 over Little Rock Parkview, who should not play baseball or soccer.
Or football.
They should just stick to basketball over there.
They got that down.
But the Russellville Cyclones run shop on the Parkview Patriots. Congratulations to those guys. We've got plenty of stuff that we've got to hit and we've got to get to on Wednesday, but we are out of time for today. If you haven't heard the music for the last 3 minutes when I told them to start it a long time ago, for Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter, and even our boy Dave Brown, I'm Mark Freeman saying so long. We'll see you at 11 o'clock on Wednesday.